Welcome or welcome back and Happy New Year. It is New Year's Day. Today I have a follow-up video from my previous video, which was my favorite discoveries of 2023. I realized I needed to do a follow-up video because there were a few that I forgot about. And the reason I forgot about these is because they're kept down in the cabinet in our bedroom, and yeah, I didn't think to do a thorough look through that cabinet to see what else might have made it to the list that I just filmed. Anyway, I just had a couple of fragrances here that I wanted to mention because they are actually really special fragrances, and I would consider these to be amongst my favorites of what I discovered this year. And sorry, my voice is a little bit croaky, and no, that's not because I had a really big party New Year's Eve. We actually stayed home last night, but I am just getting over a cold. So if my voice starts to break down, that's why. But I do have a massive bottle of water here to keep me hydrated, so hopefully we'll be okay. All right, so let's get into this list. First and foremost, I cannot believe I forgot about this first fragrance. This was actually, you could argue, my first new discovery of 2023. My friend Emma gave me a sample of it. I wore it on a work trip to Sydney in January and basically came back from that trip and thought I needed to buy a bottle, and I then did buy a bottle, and it is Victoria by Versailles. This is a really great floral woody fragrance. It has some really great tart fruits in the opening. There's also a green element to this. So when I first smelled this, or when I first put it on my skin, I really thought it smelled like you'd picked a tart fruit, so some kind of fruit off a tree, and you're getting that sort of green stemminess blending in with the smell of the fruit in your hand. And then there is oud in the base of this, so it does develop into more of a woody feel. The oud is not challenging. It's a very clean oud. It's very rich smelling, very elegant. And then of course there's a bunch of white florals in here, which is probably why I really love it so much, because of that white floral element. But it's really everything in combination. Those tart fruits, a little bit of greenness, the woodiness, and the beautiful opulent florals. It is a very strong fragrance, and some people find it quite challenging. I think the oud in here can sometimes come off a little bit petroleum-like on some people. I personally don't get that. But to me, this just smells very elevated and quite elegant and totally unisex as well. It sort of works for me as a work scent, but it might in some cases be a little bit too much for a workplace, but it definitely also works for evening as well. Or anytime, actually. I wear this anytime, as you can tell. I mean, it's got a fairly decent dent in it. And just as a side note, I also did buy a bottle of Blondine when I bought this. And the Blondine sort of sat on my shelf for a couple of months because I was so infatuated with this one. I just gravitated towards this so much. But this is a fairly decent dent for me for one bottle in a year. But the Blondine might even be halfway down. It's not in this list because it wasn't a discovery for me for 2023. But that fragrance, absolutely beautiful. I wear it all the time. And I layer it under other things. The House of Versailles, I'm just absolutely in awe of their fragrances, and there will be more to come, don't worry. The next one is French Flower by Matière Première. I don't think this is a 2023 release, although don't quote me on that. I did get Guidance wrong. I was convinced that Guidance was a 2022 release, but as it turns out it wasn't. It was just sort of early 2023. Anyway, French Flower is one that I started paying attention to when I started looking for fragrances for my wedding, and I first bought a little 6ml of it to play with, and I went through that entire 6ml. So this fragrance has tuberose absolute in it, and quite a lot, and it comes off quite waxy, and I think a lot of people might find this challenging if particularly if they aren't typically tuberose or white floral lovers. So I don't think this fragrance is for everyone, but I think it's really, really beautiful. It's got a really lovely pear note in the opening. There is a hint of ginger in there as well, which just gives it a little bit of zing, but it's not ginger dominant, and I don't know if I would have picked up on the ginger if I'd not read it as being part of this fragrance. But once I'd read it, I went, oh yeah, I can definitely get that. It also leans a little bit green, and it just has that very vegetal feel. Obviously, I didn't end up wearing this for my wedding, but I love it nonetheless, and obviously I love it enough to have purchased a full bottle of it. So that is French Flower by Matière Première. Next up is one that was a bit of a blind buy, and I have talked about this recently, so I won't go into too much detail about it, but this is Jadore L'Or by Dior. This is the 2017 Francois Demarchi version, so it's not the most recent version that Francis Kurkdjian did for the house. So this one is white and yellow florals. There's quite a bit of ylang-ylang in here. There's, I think, maybe a bit of gardenia and tuberose and jasmine. It's interesting. So most of the line, I think, is centered around jasmine. But for me, in this one, I don't feel like jasmine's the dominant flower. My friend Corinne from Olfactive Stories quotes the ylang-ylang as being the one that jumps out at her, and I'm a bit the same. But everyone gets something different, I think. And then it's got a really lovely ambery base to it, and it's got a bit of a vintage feel. So it definitely doesn't feel as modern as the new version, but I just feel like that ambery base really gives it a lot of depth and character, and it also has fantastic staying power. So I'm super, super happy with this one. It does dry down a little bit powdery as well, which I enjoy, which I think also comes from that sort of vintagey ambery base. It's fantastic. So that is Jadore L'Or 2017 version. This is another one that I've spoken about recently, and I won't go on about it too much because I'm not sure it's necessarily one of my favorites, and like the Dior, it has been discontinued, so I don't want to harp on about it too much. But this is Mon Guerlain Florale. I only discovered this one this year, and what I like about this is, I mean, Mon Guerlain is one that I've struggled with over the years. I go through phases of thinking that I really like it, but then every time I always end up thinking it's too sweet for me. It's just too vanillic and too sweet. This one is not as sweet as the original Mon Guerlain, and it has, I guess, this more floral aspect to it. And I do get sort of a bit of a floral bouquet in here, which is sort of nondescript, sort of light, airy florals. But what really got me on this one was the iris in the base. I really get a lot of iris coming through in the mid to the dry down, and that's why I ended up wearing this quite a lot this year. I have been mostly layering it with another iris fragrance, but I still really enjoy it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's my favorite discovery, but certainly a really approachable and enjoyable one to wear. Next up is one that I only have a decant of, and I'm contemplating a bottle, but I'm still thinking about it. I'm trying to take my time. This is Pure Extreme by M. Micallef. And this is probably the first Micallef fragrance I've really paid a lot of attention to. I know a lot of people love Ylang in Gold and Note Vanille. They're the ones that people seem to talk about a lot. And there's a few others that seem to be getting a bit of airtime recently as well. But this is the one, this was just a random sample that came to me through my perfume subscription service. And I really like this. This is sort of a musky floral fragrance. I think the florals in here are, well, it smells sort of rosy, but it could be peony. Just really light and sort of kind of pink smelling, I guess. Really fresh and easy to wear, and it's a lovely one to wear, particularly in the heat. It doesn't smell too much like fabric softener either, which I really enjoy. So yeah, in terms of musky perfumes and sort of clean musky perfumes, I think this one is a really beautiful one. Do I need another musky perfume though? That is the question. I have quite a few that fit that category, and this year I did manage to pick up a bottle of Penhaligon's The Favourite, which is more violet leaning than rose or peony. But again, it just has that really fresh, musky, clean, aesthetic sort of scent to it, and it performs really well. So I think maybe because I managed to pick up this bottle of The Favourite that maybe I don't necessarily need to buy this, but I would love to add this one to my collection. I do really, really enjoy wearing it, and I don't own any Micallef fragrances. So there's just part of me that wants to buy it because I just want to have a Micallef in my wardrobe. And herein lies the power of social media, I guess, because I think the reason I want that is because so many people talk about Micallef fragrances, and yeah, I would just love to have it. And I'd maybe love to explore more from Micallef, because now that I found one, I feel like there might be others that I would really enjoy as well. The thing that sort of stopped me from really resonating with Micallef previously is just the fact that a lot of their fragrances are quite sweet, and I'm, you know, traditionally I haven't really been into very sweet fragrances. This is not sweet, but I think also I am starting to come around to more sweeter scent profiles as well. Partly that's because Matt enjoys sweet fragrances on me, so I tend to wear them for him, and then I think I've developed a taste for it. So who knows? There may be a bottle of Micallef in my future, but not immediately because I still have this decant. Two fragrances that I was kicking myself for forgetting to put in that last list. A couple of fragrances that I picked up in Florence. The first one, which is my favorite of the two, is Stige by, I think the perfumer, or the brand is called Essenza Suprema, although that might actually be the line done by the perfumery, because I don't know, I can't figure out if the brand is Perfume or Essenza Suprema. I think maybe Essenza Suprema might be the line, the range, and Perfume might be the actual brand. Anyway, this little perfumery opened right next door to the hotel that we were in when we were in Florence, and the perfumer and owner of the brand, Alba, was in the store. It was her opening day, and we just sort of wandered in there at the very end of the day. She was actually closing up, and we got talking to her, and she was very generous with her time and showed us all of her range. I was really sick at the time and could barely smell anything, but she asked me what my favorite perfume was, and of course I told her it was Almond Woman by Almond Jane, and she was familiar with that fragrance, so she immediately picked this one out and got me to try it, because this is a very green leaning fragrance. It's got a bit of ivy in the top. There's green tea as well, so there's a crispness of green tea and it's very fresh. There's some white florals in here, and then there's iris and musk in the base. It is a very unique fragrance. It doesn't smell like any other green fragrance I've ever tried, and I absolutely adore it. And I could actually smell it when she first gave it to me, and I was like, yep, I love it. I absolutely love it. It was the beginning of our trip though, so I was reluctant to go all in on a 100ml bottle that I knew I was going to have to lug around for the rest of the trip. So I did only buy the travel size, but I'm really, really kicking myself. And I wish I had purchased the full bottle, because I'm already a third of the way through this, and yeah, I would like to have more of it. And I don't know how easy it is to source them from Australia, but I will get in touch with Alba when I get to the bottom of this and see if there's any way of getting a bottle over to Australia. So that is Stige. And then while we were in there, she also gifted me a bottle of Hydra, I think that's how she said it, which is a tuberose fragrance. And it's very green and fresh, again, kind of a bit fruity as well. And there's something sort of almost medicinal in here. I don't know what the note is. I haven't looked at the note listing. Hang on, let me look it up. Yeah, again, so this has ivy and green notes in the top as well. So it's got that similar sort of green tone to Stige, but this one has the added note of tuberose, which I don't think this one has. I think this one has jasmine, if I remember correctly. Anyway, so but this is definitely way more white floral dominant. It is also a little bit sweeter than Stige, and I couldn't smell this on the day. So she gave this to me, and I couldn't smell it because by the time we got around to smelling this, I'd smelled a few other things and my nose was dead after also sort of spending a bit of time with this. She was very kind and she just gifted this to me because we got talking and we were talking about the fact that we were over there to get married, and she got very excited. And so I'm very, very grateful, and I have been wearing this quite a bit over the last few weeks, especially as the weather has been warming up. It's a really beautiful, fresh tuberose to wear in the heat, and I absolutely love it. So that is Hydra. So yeah, these were the two that I was really sad that I had missed out of that previous video. So hence I am refilming. Whilst we are on the topic of fragrances that I purchased while we were on holiday, this is a really random one that I picked up in Grasse. This is called Eau de Grasse No.1. And I don't know what the actual brand is. It's a little bit confusing because at first I thought maybe the brand is Eau de Grasse and No.1 was just the perfume. And when I was in the store, it was just this random little shop that we wandered into, I think on our last day in Grasse. And I was just smelling all the perfumes and talking to the sales lady. And there was another lady sort of sitting in the corner behind a desk, obviously working. But I asked her if she was the perfumer and she said, no, that lady is the perfumer. So I ended up picking this one up. But when I got home and Googled it, I couldn't really find much information on it. But on Fragrantica, they list a male perfumer. So it could have just been a lost in translation thing. Perhaps she meant that the lady that she referred to was the store owner and not the perfumer. But I don't know what the brand is what I'm saying. So this is kind of I guess you could say it's a bit of a fruit patchouli. It sort of opens with a little bit of a fruity patchouli aspect to it. A little bit like Coco Mademoiselle, but without being sort of screechy and sharp like Coco Mademoiselle. This is much softer, much more musky and airy, and the patchouli in here has a real earthiness to it as well, which I really, really like. And then there's some really beautiful sort of soft florals. I really like this, and in the couple of days between Grasse and St. Paul de Vence where I discovered Fleur de Reine, I wore this pretty much exclusively during that time. And this is a really great one for the heat and for spring, just because it's so light and airy, and it's just exactly the type of thing that I'd been gravitating towards this year. I've really been wanting sort of more linear, simple, uncomplicated floral perfumes that are really, really easy to wear. And this just fit the bill perfectly. But I just really enjoyed the more earthy patchouli aspect to this one. And again, like I said, it does sort of remind me of Coco Mademoiselle a little bit, but distant cousins. I used to own Coco Mademoiselle and I gave my bottle away because it was just too loud for me and too persistent, and it would give me a headache. And I don't find this does that. Anyway, so I get a little bit of the benefit of having that memory of Coco Mademoiselle, but with a softer aspect. So that is Eau de Grasse No.1. Next up is one that I just recently bought. So I actually bought this after I filmed that video. This is Dioriviera. So this is the first one in the Privé line that Francis Kurkdjian has done for Dior now that he's the creative director. And I know that the reception of this has not been that favourable. I think a lot of people were very disappointed in this because it's not, you know, super radically unique or anything like that. This is effectively a fig fragrance. It's meant to be fig, rose and honey, I think. And what's really interesting about this one is the diversity of how people perceive this. I know Henna from CanadianBeauty.com gets, you know, a very gourmand aspect to this and lots of the honey. I get a little bit of the honey, but it's not dominant to me, and I don't feel like this leans gourmand on me at all. What I get from this is lots and lots of the fig, so it's very green to me. It's very soft and airy, but fresh. It's really weird because when I smell it out of the atomizer, I can perceive quite a bit of the rose as well, and a lot of people talk about getting lots of rose from this. but when I put it on my skin, I can barely smell the rose at all. And for me, this really is a green fig fragrance that's, you know, soft and kind of a little bit juicy. I think there's some citruses in the top, those beautiful sort of juicy citruses that Francis Kurkdjian does really well, coupled with probably a bit of vanilla. Or maybe it's just the sweetness from the honey, but I just really love this fragrance. I have basically been showering myself in this over the last couple of weeks since I've had it, because we've had this really weird weather. We've had storms, we've had, you know, lots of humidity. It's been hot, it's been cool. Like the weather's all over the place, but this has just been my favorite thing to wear over the last couple of weeks. I feel like the reviews have been a little bit harsh because I still think this is a really fantastic fragrance. But I understand also the sentiment around people thinking that he would do something maybe a little bit more spectacular for his first Privé release. But I still think this is a really good release. It's just not that groundbreaking, I suppose. Anyway, so that is Dioriviera by Maison Dior. I was going to say Maison Francis Kurkdjian by Dior. All right, second last. This is one that I confess I blind bought, which was very risky because it was not a cheap blind buy. It wasn't full price either. I bought it in the Black Friday sales and I got a really good deal on it. I think it was about like 60% off or something. And I thought maybe it was so cheap because it's not a very well-known one from this brand. I didn't know anything about it. I think I managed to find one review of it. I was attracted to the note listing of this. I'll tell you what it is. Hang on. This is XXY by Xerjoff. And I mean, I'm not a Xerjoff aficionado anyway, because as you know, I mentioned in a recent video, I've just never really had a lot of luck with Xerjoff fragrances because the ones that are really popular are just not the type of fragrances that I gravitate towards. But I have been paying a bit of attention to the house recently and sampling a lot of things that don't necessarily get talked about so much. And I have been finding some stuff that I really like. So XXY, I was attracted to this one because A, it was going so cheap, and B, the note listing. So there's, you know, sort of solar florals in here. There's ylang ylang and tuberose and jasmine, iris. There's a bit of, you know, fruits in the opening, I think peach, and then there's, you know, sandalwood and vetiver and patchouli in the base, I think. So all things that I really, really like. And I thought, and particularly because of the iris, I don't know, I just really felt like I wanted to give this a go, and it was on sale for Black Friday and I jumped on it, even against my rationale, because part of me was saying, just get onto the Xerjoff website, Cherie, and order a sample of it first. But it was a timing issue, and I figured if I don't like it, I can always on-sell it, probably for the price that I buy it, because it was already so cheap. It was about 30% of its original price, I think. Anyway, so I bought it. It was a couple $100, which is an expensive blind buy. Win. All I can say, it was I jagged a win for a change. I don't do that often, although I have been successful with the Jadore as well. This is a beautiful fragrance. I think partly maybe the reason why people don't talk about this one, or, you know, it doesn't get a lot of attention, is because it's not the typical loud scent profile that Xerjoff seems to do. And this is, yeah, so it's a lot more quiet. It's very elegant. It's just, it's beautiful. I need to spend some more time with it. I want to put it on because I need to smell it. I'm still obviously getting to know it. I almost get really dry woods in the opening, and then I get some of that fruit coming through, and then the iris hits. So beautiful. I think Xerjoff actually does iris pretty well. I do have, you know, a dream of owning iris one day, but there won't be anytime soon because that rarely goes on sale. I've never seen that on sale actually. And I feel like I get a bit of spice in here as well, which I don't know if I remember seeing any spices listed, but it's quite peppery, and I feel like maybe even a bit of clove or something. It's something a bit, you know, a bit like a dark spice that's quite pungent, but it's not overdone. It doesn't overpower the fragrance, but it's definitely there. Anyway, love. I won't be making a habit of blind buying things again though. Whilst I am very glad to have this now, I'm also conscious that, you know, I can't be doing that on a regular basis. Last, but definitely not least, this is one of my absolute favourite discoveries of this year. It's a fairly recent discovery. Again, a casualty, if you will, of the Black Friday period. I don't know if I necessarily got this on sale, but I've been wanting to get some more things from this house, and I thought about just getting a discovery kit, but then I think maybe they did have a bit of a special or something on their travel sizes, so I can't remember, or maybe not. Maybe it was just that their travel sizes are hard to get because they're always sold out. But this is another one from Versailles, and this one is called Verano Porteno. I heard Natalia speaking with Pep on Pep's podcast about this one, and it intrigued me. So I'm very glad to have it, and it is absolutely gorgeous. You sort of have this sort of green, citrusy sort of opening on it. There's some really beautiful white florals in there as well. And then you get this beautiful musky base that's also still quite green, but there's a freshness to this fragrance that I just can't. When I read the note listing, I'm sort of going, where is this beautiful, clean freshness coming from? Maybe it is the florals, maybe it's the combination of florals with, you know, maybe the mate tea note, which also surprised me because sometimes I really struggle with the mate tea note because I find it it can be sort of, you know, quite astringent and bitter, and I don't always like that because sometimes that sort of profile can give me a little bit of a headache because of its sharpness. But this one doesn't do that at all. It's really softened so beautifully with the florals and the musk and the woods, and I just love it. And the citruses in here are just done so beautifully. They're really juicy, they're not too sharp, they're not too sort of pithy or oily. Oh, it's so pretty, and I really I really think this is going to go on my up until recently non-existent wish list, but I think I'm going to reinvigorate the wish list. So that is Verano Porteno. I think this might be one of my favourite discoveries of this year, in conjunction with Fleur de Rain, which was my favourite from the last list, and also in conjunction with Victoria, also from Versailles. I've really been having a moment with Versailles and Stige by Perfume. They're just all so good. It's so hard to pick a favourite anyway, and my decision-making powers are really weak today, and I cannot just pick one. So from this list, I'm picking these three as my favourites. So there you go. That is my round 2 of my favourite discoveries of 2023. Thank you so much for all your feedback on the last video and sharing what things you've been discovering as well. There's so many releases from this year that I haven't even tried yet. I think I'm going to have to get my nose on Tobacco Honey by Guerlain because so many people are talking about it, and a few of you even mentioned it in the comments, and I feel like the people who are commenting on my videos have similar taste to me. So if you guys like it, then I definitely have to at least go give it a sniff. So thank you so much. Happy New Year. And I will see you in the next video. I've had lots of downtime over this festive season. I'm obviously, because I have been a little bit sick as well, but I've just been sort of jotting down ideas of things that I want to do. So yeah, stay tuned for lots of video content coming your way, hopefully in 2024. Until then though, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
A little different than all the rest. I'm quite old-fashioned, where I had sometimes played chess. And when I'm out, I'm looking for that vintage